So, Ron, you've had one of the most interesting first couple of years in a coaching job that a coach could ever have, because you've been involved in so many other things other than just simply coaching a football team. What has that been like? And have you started writing the chapter in your book that will be all about life that has nothing to do with football?
I have. I've taken notes, that's for sure. I really have. Because someday I do hope to write a book about some of the situations, circumstances I've gone through in my entire career as a head coach. There's some really good times and interesting things that came out of Carolina as well. But it's been different because, everything for the most part does cross my desk. And it's been at times, some really good things, and at times some tough things, some things that, are all part of, what we call, culture change. And that's one of the things that we talked about when I first got there, is that we wanted to change the culture. We wanted to try and create a culture where it's sustainable. It's a winning culture that we can build off of and go forward. And the first year was a little bit of a little bit of something that was different and special at the same time. We had to go through a lot of social things. We had to try and fight through a lot of the stuff that had happened historically with this organization prior to us getting here, and just trying to get those things back on track. And then at the same time, trying to develop and grow our football team. And we went out and we win the division, which was a little bit of a, something different as well. So that creates a whole new set of expectations going into the second year. And I think the expectations of the second year were a little bit out of kilter just because of what happened, and trying to get those back in line to where I believe they need to be. And I feel pretty good about where we are heading into our third season.
So, Ron, I wonder how much daily contact in the last couple of years have you been able to have with Daniel Snyder, who is obviously your boss, but he has been in and out because of his discipline from the NFL. So how much have you talked, and do you feel what do you feel your relationship is like with him?
I think it's pretty good. When I first got here, one of the things that I did was, he and I talked almost daily for the first few months. And because I wanted him to be up on as to what I was doing and how things were going, and just wanted to kind of help him get a feel for who I am and the direction I was taking the football team. And then we kind of slowed it down about once every 3 or 4 days. And then as we progressed even further, it got to about once a week. If something came up and he needed to talk to me, he would reach out, or vice versa. And we kind of carried that throughout the year. And then, when the situation obviously changed, we hired a club president, and with Jason Wright as the club president, he and I talk once a week for the most part now. There was a period of time that I wasn't talking with Mr. Snyder as much as I was talking with Mrs. Snyder. Every now and then I would reach out to Mr. Snyder and just give him an update. But I for the most part, was interacting with Mrs. Snyder, who was taking over the daily operations of the organization. And then recently I've reached out to the owner, and he and I have tried to talk now a little bit more, and really trying to explain where we're headed coming up into this next season. Obviously, with what's going on in free agency, what's going on in the draft, what we're waiting to see what happens with some other players, obviously. And it's been good. It really has. And again, I think a lot of it has now to do with, as we go forward, because I've said it, the third year is when I expect us as a football team to take another step.
Has it been very much of a drag on you having to spend all this time away from the football team on things like the team name and on the harassment lawsuit and all that? How have you been able to keep your kind of priorities in order throughout all that?
Well, I think first and foremost, to me, the change of the name obviously was something that came up, during the whole social situations, and it was something that needed to be done, and something that we as an organization grasped fully, and really dug into it to try and make sure we create and pick a name that we felt really kind of best represented us as a football team, and then us as a community as well. And so that really wasn't as much, I think. I think some of the other things, obviously, the off the field stuff, we try to compartmentalize it with the players and get them to understand that, hey, these are the things that focus and really are important to us as far as football is concerned. The other things, obviously, are social issues, are issues that the organization as a whole, as opposed to just football, has to deal with. And so really just trying to keep it separate. So when, that saying that I've had, that I've used, that I've heard people say is be where your feet are, that's what I really try to do. So when I was involved with the players, when I was involved with the football team, the football activities, it was really focusing on them and on the team. And then away from it, I try to keep it separate. And it's been good because with Jason right here now, Jason's terrific at what he does. And he really tries to separate certain things so that when it is time for me to step in, it's really about, hey, coach, this is what's happening. These are how things are going. You got a thought or an opinion, and then he and I would discuss certain things. But he keeps things to a minimum as far as outside of football for me. He really does. He's terrific at what he's doing as our president.
I look at the two teams in the Super Bowl, and I see two teams that have risen a lot in the span of 1 year because of their quarterback play, particularly in Cincinnati. And I look at your team, and, man, it looks like you could go a lot of different ways at quarterback. Run down your quarterback situation, and do you have any idea right now who's going to start for you opening day?
Well, it's a great question, Peter, because it's one of the things that is really driving us this off season as far as our personnel department and our coaching department. The biggest thing, more so than anything else, is we do have to find out and establish who is going to be our franchise quarterback. I was fortunate in Carolina. We had that from the beginning. We drafted Cam Newton #1 overall, and for 7 quality seasons, we got good play out of that position. And it's unfortunate because then he hurts his shoulder, he hurts his foot, and things kind of go south. And it really reemphasizes, reinforced for me just how important finding that guy is. One of the things that we talked about doing in the offseason last year was trying to find a guy. We tried to make a couple of moves that went on, and it didn't work for us. So we felt and we believe that if we can put the rest of the pieces in place and then go forward this season, season 3, if we can find that guy, we feel pretty good. We've got the number 6 rated offensive line in the NFL from last year's PFF. We have a 1,000-yard receiver back-to-back in Terry McLaurin. And then we also had a 1,000-yard rusher this past year, Antonio Gibson. So if we feel like we have enough quality players and tools on the offensive side that if we can find that guy, we can ascend. We can ascend pretty well in our division, in our conference, and in this league. So finding the quarterback, obviously having that guy established for us is one of our priorities this offseason.
How close do you think you ever came to getting Matthew Stafford in that very frenetic time that weekend a year plus ago? Do you think you were ever in the ballpark?
Well, we thought initially because, we had reached out and we had talked to them about, what our interest was, obviously. But then it happened very quickly. It really did. And next thing you know, he's with the Rams, and it's worked out very well for them, obviously.
So, Ron, I wonder, when John Madden died this year, I thought of you. We had a long conversation, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, when you talked about the influence that John Madden had, not only on your coaching career, but on your life. I bet people don't really know that story. Let's hear it.
Well, it actually goes all the way back to 1977. After they had won the Super Bowl, he was on vacation early January, and I was just a high school kid at the time, and I run into him, meet him for the first time, and me being one of these young kids I'm seeing somebody who's a very iconic figure in the NFL already. And I went up and introduced myself, and we talked a little bit, and he was gracious, very gracious. And I said to him, I said, well, someday I'm going to play in the NFL. And I was just, I think I was in 10th grade at the time. And he looked at me, had that big old smile on his face, and he says, well, kid, go for it. and he wrote an autograph for me, and I still have it. To Ron, best wishes and good luck, John Madden. My mom has it at her house. I actually visited my parents recently, got a chance to go through the little scrapbook she has, and there it was on this little card that he assigned for me. And the thing that always stood out in my mind was how gracious he was. You know what I mean? He took the time to talk with me, answer my questions, and then had a comment for me. And so I never forgot that. And then as I went through my NFL career, and he covered our teams when I played, and he would always come to town when he did our games, and he'd always come by and see me, or he and I would chit chat about something. And then when I got into the NFL and became a coach, going into my third season, Mr. Richardson, the former owner of the Panthers, was friends with Coach Madden, and he reached out to Coach and said, I'm going to ask Coach to talk to you, if that's okay. I would love for him, for you and him to spend time. So I reached out to Coach, asked him if I could visit with him, and he said, absolutely. But before you come, I want you to go back and look at these games. I know you got this record of 3-13 in games decided by a touchdown or less. I want you to go out, and I want you to look at those games and see what you could have done differently. So I do that. I go back, I look at those 13 games, I take all these notes, I write all these things out, got a nice little report ready to go. So I fly out to his office in Pleasanton, California, and we sit down, we kind of chit chat for a little bit. And just as we're about to start, I said, I got that homework assignment you gave me. And he goes, oh. So I pull it out, and it's about 15, 20 pages. And I go to hand it to him, and he goes, that's not for me, that's for you. I said, excuse me? He goes, what did you learn? Well, I said, as I started to flip through, I said, well, like this instance, I kind of, I went by the book. I did it the way you're supposed to. He goes, what do you mean the way, by the book? He says, there is no book, Ron. You know that. There is no book. He said, you've played enough football. You know enough football. You've coached enough football to go by your gut instinct, by what you feel. He says, that's the thing you got to understand. You've got to do that. That's the best way to judge things, to make decisions, is because you've got enough experience. Rely on your experience. There's no book, Ron. And from that point on, it made sense. It hit me that what I was doing was safe. It was the safe thing to do. It was the least critical thing, criticizable thing to do.
Right.
That's a word. And so from that point, now I would get into game situations and I would think them through. You get there and you say, okay, if we get the first down, game's over. Okay. If we kick the extra point, so if we kick the field goal, we go up by 6, they can still score a touchdown and kick the extra point. So go for the first down. Why not? It's 4th and 1. They're backed up. If you stop their mentality is all we need is a field goal to tie. Their mentality is not about us. So those things he really helped me to understand, and that really changed my thought process going forward. It really did, and it really helped me. And I really do believe that was really kind of the evolution I needed, was to get away from being safe and go ahead and be a little more daring, but based on my experience, on what I'd gone through as a player and as a coach. And he really made the impact that I think really helped me to break through and become the coach that I became and that I am.
You know what's so interesting about that? A lot of times when someone dies, people have platitudes. A great coach, a great man, great this, great that. There aren't a lot of people who have stories of someone that really helped their lives and their livelihoods. And you have one of those. You'll have that for the rest of your career.
And you know what I've done with it, Peter, is I've used it as examples to other young coaches that have asked me questions about things. And I think that's the thing that I really do appreciate. It's interesting. I was reading some excerpts from his Hall of Fame acceptance speech. And the one thing is that I remember from it more so than anything else is that he's all about football. He coached football not because he loved the game or anything. That's what he did. He was a football guy. And it's interesting because the one thing that stood out in my mind more than anything else was when I went to his office, in his parking lot to the right was that 7-man sled that he always talks about.
Wow, yeah.
And that was a real interesting thing to see and sit there and go, wow, you know, it really is there. He talks about it all the time, and it's there.
Yeah. So, Ron, I've got a little pet theory. This is 180 degrees different from anything we've been talking about, but there's been a lot of discussion about what to do to increase the prospects for black and minority coaches. You are one of 5 minority coaches right now in the NFL, head coaches, and most people believe that that's not enough. And my theory is, and my idea is, why not have every team in the NFL with at least one black or minority assistant coach who touches the quarterback every day, who touches the passing game every day. I was talking to Mike Loxley, you know, the coach of Maryland, who's the head of the National Coalition for Minority Football Coaches, and he kind of is, you know, like so many coaches are, you know, we don't have enough people in the pipeline that are moving up consistently, and not just for head coaches, but for coordinators. I just want to hear your thought on whether that makes any sense to you at all.
It makes a lot of sense to me. It really does. And it's something that I'd actually had a conversation with Doug Williams about this last year. And now knowing that and thinking about that is something that I most certainly want to be aware of and work towards that. I will say this too, Peter. The other thing I think we need to do is we need to create a situation, circumstances where we can take minority coaches, black coaches, and put them in front of the decision makers in the off season. Okay, we have a combine, we have an owners meeting. What's wrong with having a specific number of these guys available around, interacting with the GMs, the presidents, the owners? It's some way to create an opportunity for them to be known. You know, it's like that saying in terms of I have a friend who tells his salesmen that they have to know you, they have to like you, and they have to trust you before they buy from you. And I was talking to him last night about this, and he said to me, he said, Ron, that's what it sounds like to me, that most of these guys aren't known. You know, my friend owns a trucking company, a trucking dealership. He's, you know, sells 18-wheelers. And he was telling me that it just sounds like your guys, nobody really knows who they are. And they need to be put in front of those people so they can develop these relationships. So I think that's a heck of an idea. I'd love to see us do something where we use the combine, we use the owners' meetings as an opportunity for there to be some sort of situation where they can come, meet these folks, talk to these people, learn who they are, let them learn who they are. Exposure is going to be the only thing I think that's really going to increase opportunities. And like you said, Peter, exposure to the quarterback, to the passing game, to the running game, to the offense, and then exposure to the decision makers. I think that gives them an opportunity to develop relationships that can help lead to more opportunities.
Ron Rivera, thanks so much for taking all the time. Good luck in year 3 with the Washington Commanders. I must say that I have not used the team name for the Washington football team in 9 years. So I'm kind of glad I can now call them something, even though I kind of like Washington football team. It was distinctive. It was fun.
Yep, it was catchy. But I think Commanders are going to grow on some people. And, you know, at the end of the day, though, Peter, it does come down to one thing, and that's winning. Yep. So we got to get going.
Hey, listen, thanks so much, Ron.
All right. Thanks, Peter. Appreciate you.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.